Perhaps you've hired brilliant creative people, or are leading your family into the future, or you're a teacher with a classroom filled with curious students. Regardless, they represent your teams. So why would anyone force them to follow rigid, control, soul-crushing processes? Many think they're creating efficiency, but they're actually creating a prison for their best ideas. They've fallen into the action trap, the belief that more control and more urgency will fix things, when it's really just causing burnout and stagnation. It's not working. In fact, U.S. employee engagement has dropped to its lowest level in over a decade, families are in disarray, and children find school boring and repetitive. So what if the answer wasn't to tighten your grip, but to let go? What if the secret to unlocking their genius isn't more structure, but a different kind of thinking? What if you could learn to harness the chaos as the most powerful tool for innovation? That's what we're digging into today. We're going to dismantle this myth that control equals results and show you how to build teams, families, and students that thrive in the messy, unpredictable, and brilliant space where creativity is born. We'll start in section 1, the science of productive chaos. Most leaders hear chaos and immediately picture anarchy, missed deadlines, conflicting priorities, and a total breakdown of productivity. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about productive chaos, steeped in high expectations. Think of it like a garden. A perfectly manicured garden has every plant in a straight line. It's predictable, and it's orderly, and it's boring. Nothing unexpected can ever grow there. But a wildflower meadow, that's chaotic. It's a complex, messy system where unexpected things flourish. New species appear. Cross-pollination happens. And the ecosystem becomes more resilient and vibrant because of its diversity, not in spite of it. Your team is like that wildflower meadow. When you overmanage each flower, you turn them into a sterile garden. You get exactly what you planned for and nothing more. But when you introduce productive chaos, you create conditions for innovation that emerge naturally. This isn't just a nice metaphor, it's a strategy. Embracing a little turbulence forces teams to think beyond rigid frameworks, making them more agile and adaptable. It prepares them to turn disruption into an opportunity. They stop asking, "What am I supposed to do next?" and start asking, "What can we accomplish together?" They turn from an employee to a mini CEO. The goal isn't disorder for its own sake. It's to create an environment where simple interactions give rise to complex, brilliant solutions, a process known as emergence. You stop being the master gardener who places every seed and become the ecologist who cultivates rich soil, ensures their sunlight, and then steps back to watch what amazing things grow. So now that I've introduced chaos, let's jump to section 2, the freedom accountability paradox. Now, the biggest fear I hear from leaders is, if I give my team more freedom, they'll abuse it. Nothing will ever get done. This is a huge misunderstanding and something I had to learn myself. The solution isn't a free-for-all. It's about embracing what I call the freedom expectation paradox. Here's the paradox. The more you trust your team with real autonomy, the more accountable they become. Seems counterintuitive. However, when people feel like cogs in a machine, just executing your commands, their sense of ownership vanishes. They'll do the task, but they won't take ownership of the outcome. Why would they? It was your plan, not theirs. But when you give them a clear objective, the what and the why, and then grant them the freedom to figure out the how, something magical happens. They become fiercely committed to the results because the solution is now theirs. This isn't about abandoning control. It's about exercising it in a different way. You shift from direct, task-based management to indirect leadership by setting a powerful vision and a strong culture. You communicate the goals and values so everyone understands how their work fits into the bigger picture. Autonomy doesn't mean no rules. It means freedom within the framework. You set the boundaries and define what success looks like, but you let your team navigate the path. You empower them with the authority to make decisions, which builds their confidence and skills. Your job is to stop being a micromanager and start being a resource. Provide the inspiration, tools, and information they need, and trust them to deliver. This approach doesn't just produce better work, it creates a depth of motivation that top-down control can never touch. Let's move on to section 3, psychological safety. It's the bedrock of productive chaos. Let's be crystal clear. None of this works without a foundation of psychological safety. Chaos without safety is just anxiety. For your team to experiment, take risks, and embrace the unpredictability, they must believe without a shadow of a doubt that their failure won't be punished. Think about it. Innovation, by its very nature, is a leap into the unknown. It means trying things that might not work. Failure isn't just a possibility, it's a probability. If your team is afraid a failed experiment will lead to blame or damage their career, they'll stop trying. They will default to the safest, most predictable, and least innovative path every single time. We say we want innovation, but our reactions to failure often prove otherwise. Fostering psychological safety means reframing failure as an opportunity for learning. It's not something to be ashamed of, it's data. And when an idea fizzles, you don't ask whose fault is it, you ask, what did we learn and where do we go from here? This concept was pioneered by researchers like Harvard's Amy Edmondson and famously put into practice by companies like Pixar and Google. The data is overwhelming. Google's famous Project Aristotle studied hundreds of teams to figure out what made them effective. The number one factor wasn't talent or experience. It was psychological safety. Teams with high psychological safety had lower turnover rates and were far more likely to generate and implement new ideas. Other studies have confirmed this, showing that safe teams see significant boost in engagement and productivity. Why? Because when people feel safe, they are more likely to speak up. They share half-formed ideas. They challenge the status quo and admit mistakes early, which enables the team to pivot more quickly. As a leader, your most important job is to model this behavior. Admit your own mistakes. Celebrate intelligence failures. Create a space where everyone feels secure enough to bring their whole unfiltered mind to the table. So moving on to section 4, from manager to architect. If you're ready to embrace this, your role has to change. You have to stop being a manager of tasks and start being an architect of an innovative environment. A manager directs. An architect designs and enables. So what does this look like in practice? First, you're the architect of the team itself. This means intentionally building cognitive diversity. Bring together people with different backgrounds, perspectives, and problem-solving styles. Homogeneous teams are efficient at executing, but diverse teams are far more innovative because that friction sparks ideas. Second, you're the architect of the team's resources. Ensure they have the necessary tools, budget, and most importantly, the time to explore. I like to think of it as a 75% expectation and the 25% autonomy rule. While its implementation has evolved, the principle remains powerful. Innovation can't always be scheduled. It needs to be unstructured and give it time to breathe. Try setting aside curiosity time or creating a small fund for experimental projects with no immediate ROI expected. Third, you're the architect of workflow. Instead of dictating steps, you focus on removing obstacles. You act as a shield for protecting your team from bureaucracy and short-term pressures that kill new ideas. Your daily question should shift from, what is everyone working on, to, what's getting in my team's way and how can I clear the path? By shifting from manager to architect, you move from a position of authority to one of influence. You stop creating followers and start developing leaders. You build a system that can generate brilliance far beyond what any single person could command on their own. So here's the proposal, the how-to. This might all sound great in theory, but where do you actually start? Let's make it simple. Here's your first step. This week, I would like you to identify one low-risk, small-scale project. Could be an internal process, a small feature, or even a new project. Your job is to define the what and the why. Be crystal clear about your desired outcome and why it matters. For example, if you're a family, we need a new way to clean the house, the what. Because an orderly house creates a pleasant and safe environment, the why. And then you're going to do the hardest part. No chore list, just doing your part. Tell your team explicitly that you are not prescribing the how. The method is up to them. Set the check-in time for a week from now, not for a progress report, but for them to share their initial ideas and ask for any resource they need. Then let them surprise you. The process may be a bit more complicated than they're used to. Their idea might be one you never would have imagined. That's the entire point. The small experiment will help build the autonomy muscle in your team and the trust muscle in you. So here's the conclusion. For decades, we've been taught that leadership is about control, predictability, and minimizing risk. In a world defined by constant change, that model is no longer just outdated, it's dangerous. It creates brittle organizations that shatter under pressure and teams of brilliant people who are too afraid to do their best work. We've seen it in unhappy workplaces, dysfunctional families, and stagnant classrooms. The future belongs to leaders who have the courage to do the opposite, to understand that their job isn't just to have all the answers, but to create an environment where genius can emerge from anywhere. Stop managing creativity. Start leading it. Provide the vision. Guarantee the safety. And trust your team, your families, or your students. Embrace the chaos. You will unleash their genius. I promise you this. If this idea resonates with you, subscribe for more on how to build unstoppable teams. And now I want to hear from you. What's one process you could let go of this week to give your team more freedom? Share it in the comments below.